all occurring at the same time, and you can kind of make out there the waves of rain showing up here as winds are coming in from the northwest. So very windy conditions. I'll slide that map up just a little bit. So we're looking at this area here. That camera is about right in here, and we're looking towards this cell here. So a lot of wind energy just north of Ozark. Now the core of this will be tracking just to the north and northeast of Ozark. We're also streaming our coverage here on our digital platform, so you have multiple ways to watch us if you lose power, because that is really flashing. And again, these winds here are capable of producing wind damage. And you got to remember, we've seen a lot of rainfall this week, so the ground is wet and it doesn't take as much wind to topple a tree when the ground is saturated. So we could see a few more down trees than normal from a 50 or 60 mile per hour wind, just given the fact the ground is so wet from all the rainfall this week. So we are tracking this again north and northeast of Ozark, right along Highway 105, what is that, 105 there, yeah, between Beeman and Mabson. I'll go back just a couple images here. I want to show you the bigger view of what we're watching. This is a pocket of some heavy rainfall, northwestern parts of Coffee County, but the core of this cell, what's left of it, is coming right on through the area around Ozark and northward too, and we will continue to track this into the far eastern part of Dale County, and then it may make it into Henry County also. The atmosphere is a little more stable the farther south we go, so this shouldn't hold together much longer. I'm saying another maybe half hour the way it looks here given current indications, but it is packing a lot of winds, and it takes a while for that wind energy to kind of come down. So we are still looking at that potential for these damaging winds, at least through areas between Ozark and Echo as it moves off to the east there. And again, a lot of lightning strikes, and the lightning strikes can cause some serious issues as well. It's this area here just north of Ozark where we have the strongest winds. We have a good view because we have the radar site right there in Echo, so we're shooting the radar beam fairly low in the sky, and that's what we want to see. We want to know what the surface winds are. You know, the winds up there at 4,000 feet, 2,000 feet, 1,000 feet, important, but not as important as winds at 200 feet or 50 feet, you know, where the trees are, and those are the trees that can come down. So let me plot here some of the wind speeds. If I highlight some of these bright blue colors, you see some 50 plus mile per hour winds estimated by Doppler radar. So given the fact that we are so close to the radar site as we sample these pixels, that is pretty indicative of what we're seeing at ground level. So 50 to 60 plus mile per hour winds in this pocket north of Ozark and then over towards Mabson. This will continue, there's a new scan, sliding down to the southeast. So it will cross Highway 27 just to the west of Echo between Ozark and Echo, with winds likely at least 50 miles per hour, if not 60 plus miles per hour in spots. And that is, with that rain, going to cause some issues to some of the weaker trees, or the trees again that are in saturated soils. Areas north here have seen anywhere from 6 to 10 inches of rain so far this week, and there's just been round after round after round of rain and storms coming on through. So we will stick with this as we track this pocket of wind. I'll go a little bigger view here and just kind of show you how this has evolved over time. I guess I have to get rid of that. Let's see, go here, and then let's just zoom out. All right, so I'm going to take you back a little bit and show you the evolution of this cluster, which has been pretty powerful for a while. It was moving up there towards the northeast, and then I'll go back 2 hours because you can see this a little bit better if I go back 2 hours. It was moving up here towards the northeast, towards Montgomery, and then it kind of did a bit of a split and started sagging southward very quickly. So the core of that wind really maximized in the Troy to Brundage area at about 10:15, 10:20 or so. But as it's been moving down to the southeast, it's been almost accelerating a little bit. So there's a secondary surge here of wind occurring in that area north and northeast of Ozark. And that's why I'm a little concerned here watching that pocket of wind. It's small in nature, but it is in that area very, very strong. And again, that's a live view. That camera shot looks like the power has gone out now in Ozark, and now the power is back on. So those lightning flashes are occurring, and that can be caused more than likely by some of the trees falling, or at least branches falling. That's crazy. Pop that up. Let's switch that around real quick, Kenneth, in the back, because there is a lot of wind and a lot of lightning occurring here in Ozark. A very powerful storm as it tracks down to the southeast, and that is really the worst pocket. Actually, it's a little bit worse to the north and to the northeast of what we're seeing here in Ozark. So as rough as it seems here, if you look at that pocket of blue north and northeast of Ozark by a few miles, the winds are actually stronger than they are right here. And these are winds probably 40 to 50 miles per hour now coming on through Ozark, and just a ton of lightning, a very loud storm certainly, and a batch of really heavy rainfall occurring at the same time. So not a good evening in Ozark, and this cell is moving towards areas just west of Echo. Okay, let's swap that back around. We'll keep that view up though, because that is pretty impressive footage coming in from our live cam. So there's that pocket now just east of Ozark. Again, our camera is right there, so it's just kind of getting glancing below of what we're actually seeing outdoors. It's actually worse in the area here just a couple miles east of downtown. I'll zoom in here just a little bit and kind of give you a little estimation here by maybe the distance marker of what we're looking at from downtown Ozark. We're about 4 miles away, so about 4 miles east of town. The winds are probably 20-25 miles per hour stronger than what we're seeing in downtown Ozark, and it's not as bad along 231 as it is on the east side of Ozark. It's really varying that much. If you are near this cell or in the core of this cell, best advice is stay away from anything on the west or northwest side of your house. Again, you go back to the trees, and I always worry about the trees falling, especially when the ground is saturated. Winds are coming in this direction, so they're moving down to the southeast. Any trees here would be falling down to the southeast, and that's why you want to stay away from the west or the northwest side of your house. You want to be somewhere on the east side of the house. Think worst case scenario, and if a tree out back falls, and it falls like this, is it going to hit me where I am in the house? Lowest level, usually the best place to go. If the kids are sleeping, you might want to get them up, go somewhere safe. If you have a lower level closet, interior bathroom, under a staircase, someplace like that, that is the place to go in a situation like this. It is a severe thunderstorm warning for this cell in Dale County, but treat this as a legitimate, strong, severe thunderstorm, not just one of those severe thunderstorm warnings where it may or may not be bad. This is bad. This is definitely 50 to 60 plus mile per hour winds in this pocket there. You see some improvement in downtown Ozark now. So again, we're looking at this area as the core of this moves away. The weather there is improving. I'll go back just a couple scans here, and you saw the worst of that, and we were being glanced by this right here in Ozark, and it looked really bad there a few minutes ago. So this pocket, you know, is still really, really rough. Not too far away from the 105 corridor, just to the east now, towards Mapson, really. That's kind of the worst pocket that we're seeing. I'll zoom in a little bit, and we can really get into some of these pixels that we're looking at here. And some of these blue colors, there's a 73 mile per hour pixel. Let me go and pinpoint some of these other ones, and there's a 65. So again, since we're so close to the radar site, we're sampling winds in the lowest few hundred feet of the atmosphere. So those raindrops will carry that wind down to the surface. And we're talking, think about it, a hurricane is 74 miles per hour. So we're talking about near hurricane force winds reaching the ground here over parts of Dale County. This pixel here is probably pretty strong as well. There's 63 miles per hour. So intense winds, a small pocket in Dale County with a storm that has a severe thunderstorm warning on it, approaching the Echo area, basically now between Ozark and Echo, approaching the radar site right around Mapson. This area not as populated, of course, as it is, say, in the city of Ozark, but there are still people that live here in Dale County, so we're keeping you informed, and we're giving you a heads up. Anywhere to the east and southeast of here, beware, this cell is moving in. Again, it should be weakening as we go through time, and overall it is weakening, but this one little pocket has been holding together and continues to hold together with very, very strong winds. Definitely improving on our live cam in Ozark right here, but you know it is much, much worse here where we don't have a camera between Echo and Ozark, right along Highway 105, approaching the Highway 27 area. So really this area between 27 and 105 is going going to have some wind damage, tree damage, weak structures as well can be impacted by winds gusting over 50 to 60 miles per hour. Any loose items outside, trampolines come to mind. They typically are tossed around by winds over 40 miles per hour, so that could be a concern also in this area as it moves down to the south and to the east. Let me go back over to the traditional reflectivity view. Heavy rainfall with this cell moving into the Echo area. Ozark, we're still in that heavy rainfall, but the core of that heavy rainfall is now east of Ozark, where you see some of these darker reds showing up there. That's the rain that is blinding. You can see the visibility in Ozark a whole lot better than it was when we came on with those winds and the rain really kicking on through. The worst of that weather now is off to the east of Ozark. Let me go out just a little bit, give you a little bigger perspective on what we're watching across the area. That's the main pocket. This area is weakening here. This cell in Coffee County, these are not severe winds, thankfully, in Coffee County. I'll give you a look at the winds here. Gusty, 30, maybe 40 miles per hour, but not as strong as we're seeing here approaching the radar site in Echo. This, by the way, is the outflow boundary that is now moving into the far western part of Houston County. A good chunk there of Dale County has seen that batch of wind come on through. Not yet in the Midland City area, almost there. It's come on through the Enterprise area. We'll go back over to the reflectivity and let's animate this over the past hour. You can kind of see the southward motion of this cluster of showers and storms. Still a lot of lightning out there also. That can cause problems with setting fires and hitting trees and causing trees to fall. So when you get that many lightning strikes, you just hope that none of them are doing any significant damage. It is certainly a possibility. There's a new severe thunderstorm warning popping up for parts of, let's see, it goes into Geneva County, Houston County, and Henry County also as the cell drops down to the southeast. Again, I'm not real concerned about severe weather in this area, even though we have some severe weather warnings in effect. The core of this severe weather threat is really right around the Echo area. And that's kind of our job here, because we'll get these really big warnings to come out from the National Weather Service. I'm trying to pinpoint, where's the worst possible weather in this big yellow box that you see. And between this big yellow box and this one here, there's the worst of the weather between Ozark and Echo. This is the pocket that will produce those potentially damaging winds in excess of 58 miles per hour, which is that threshold for a severe thunderstorm. The rest of us, even if you don't see 58 mile per hour winds, you could see 30, 40 mile per hour winds. And going back to what I mentioned earlier, because the ground is wet, the wind threshold to take down a tree is lower than it was a week ago. When the ground is dry and solid, the roots are more firmly in the ground. When that ground is soft and wet, what might have taken a 65 mile per hour wind gust to have a tree come down might only take a 50 mile per hour wind gust at this point. So we have to factor that into our analysis of these cells as they come on through. All right, I'm going to zoom back in here. As we zoom in tighter, you still see that pocket of blue, and that's what I'm concerned with. When we see the blue, that indicates very strong winds in excess of at least 50 miles per hour. We'll query some of these pixels here showing up, and they're still over, looks like 50 miles per hour. There's a 58, there's a 55, so still severe winds here showing up, winds that are capable of producing more damage, tree damage and light structural damage here between 105 and Highway 27. There's a new scan. Let this refresh here for just a second. Let me punch back over to the reflectivity and back to the velocity, and there's a little, let me go back there, just a little curious to see that little, I don't know if you can make it out there. Just watch how that changes a little bit right there. Right there. So that's really the core, it looks like, of the strongest winds as we look at the reflectivity. And that kind of goes with what we're seeing right there on the velocity view as well. So I'll see if I can get really close here, give you some highway names. You saw 27 there show up. If we have any other smaller roads pop up, might be important to pinpoint here at this point. County Road 36 and County Road 347. That's the area. South County Road 59. That's where the core of this wind is in excess of 60 miles per hour. It is weakening, and it should continue to weaken. So even though we saw that big severe thunderstorm warning come out, odds are this storm will not be remotely close to what it is now once it reaches areas here in Houston County, because it is starting to weaken. But it still has some really, really strong winds with it. I really like when the storms are close to the radar site because it gives us really good wind information. So what you're looking at here, big view, is the outflow boundary. So there's the outflow boundary into the western part of Houston County, now coming out through Midland City and then up here towards Newville and approaching Headlands. So the strongest winds now coming through the radar site there in Echo and moving here into Henry County. So we could have that wind gust in excess of 50 miles per hour. Areas to the west of 431 there, the southwestern corner of Henry County. And we will see some gusty winds move into the Dothan area as the cell continues to slide down to the southeast. Although there's been some weakening, when these winds were 70 plus miles per hour to weaken down to 50 or 60 miles per hour, that's still a significant thunderstorm, even though it is weaker than it was before. All right, let me zoom back in here to this area right around the radar site and do some sampling of the wind speeds. Again, we have really good data when we are close to the radar site and we're shooting low in the atmosphere. You see the areas of pink there showing up. Those are really strong winds. I guess for now we can pull that camera off screen there, Kenneth. I'm going to switch back over to the flowers camera, I think, here pretty quickly. But there's 230, I should say, there's 431 Newville, 173 there southward to Headland. That wind is approaching your area. So let's sample the wind speeds here. Again, very good wind speeds because we're sampling low. I'm actually going to zoom in just a little bit tighter here between Echo and, let me see, go between Echo and Newville. Let me clear that. This is not the most user-friendly sometimes when I'm, come on. Let's see, clear this. You know, sometimes you try to do something fast and it just doesn't seem to work for you. All right, let me zoom in here just a little more. Let's go with this tool. I'm trying to make it look good so it's not real jumpy. Come on, click here. We're zooming in. All right. Pixel query. Let's go some of these here. So we're at 54. Let's see what else I can pick out here. Some of these other pinks, I'm just going to hit a few different spots here. 53, there's a 46, there's a 40, 51, so 55. Most of what you're seeing here in that bright pink color, these are winds certainly at 50 or above. And where the brighter pink pixels are, you're at probably 55 to 60 miles per hour. And again, we're really low in the atmosphere. As that radar beam goes out from the radar site, you're scanning the lowest a couple hundred feet of the atmosphere. So these are almost ground truth wind speeds. And that is certainly strong enough to cause some damage, especially to trees. And when trees fall, you worry about what's underneath that tree. Is it a power line? Then your power goes out. Is it your vehicle or your house or your dog pen in the backyard? All kinds of things can be impacted by falling trees and branches. And that's a concern here as it approaches Newville, almost moving into the 173 area and almost to 431 as well. Kind of surging out here. It is weakening. That weakening trend is continuing, but still probably for the next at least 10-15 minutes, we'll see some really strong winds there. So Ozark much better. Echo, that pocket of blue has gone on through the radar site, and now it's going to show up as pink because green is inbound, pink is outbound. So now these winds are moving away from the radar site. So as that radar beam shoots out, it's shooting the wind speed of those raindrops moving away from the radar. So these bright pink colors are what we're looking for now, and then it goes to like almost an orange hue as the winds get really strong. Hopefully we don't see that close to the radar site, and we should see weakening continue. But again, Newville, eventually Headland here in say the next 5 minutes, we'll see that gust of wind come on through, and it is still pretty strong. And even around that area, we have gusty winds moving out into the northwestern part of Dothan. I'm going to switch over here. I'm going to show you the flowers cam. I'll step off camera here, and let me punch over to the flowers cam because the Ozark storm is looking better. We'll go over to the flowers cam, and I don't want to move this too much because I'm going to lose my coloring. This camera is colorized now, but if I go where it's too dark, it'll go black and white. So I'm not going to touch it at all. We'll just kind of pop that up. Yeah, there you go. So there's a look at the Flowers cam. That's Flowers Hospital looking towards where the Walmart neighborhood market is in that general vicinity. So we'll keep that camera up as well as we track this line into the Dothan area. So that camera is right here, and that wind is really surging out very quickly. Notice here the brightening of these colors as well. That doesn't necessarily mean the wind is stronger. It means that it's showing up better on radar. The radar not to get too deep into it, but you have to understand where the radar beam is and how it's intersecting the winds in the atmosphere. When the radar beam and the winds are parallel, you get really good information. When the radar beam and the winds are at a perpendicular angle, then the wind information is not as good. So what we're seeing here are the really strong winds showing up better on radar as that storm slides down to the southeast. So Headland, Newville, you are now getting into the strongest winds, and these could produce some damage. So I would say, again, stay away from the west side of your house, especially if you have trees that could be falling on your house, given the worst case scenario. There's a look at the traditional radar view. There's not a whole lot of heavy rainfall, and we'll see that when it comes on through the Flowers area there, the Flowers Hospital area. We won't see a ton of rainfall, but we'll see some gusty winds. There's a decent wind here, 30, 40 miles per hour, but the heaviest rainfall, the worst winds coincide to this area right in through here. So approaching Headland, coming on through Newville, and pretty much right at the airport at this point, right at the Dothan airport. Those are some of the strongest winds there. There's Midland City. So the airport is in this area right here. There's 134. Heavy rainfall, still a lot of lightning strikes. Kirkland's Crossroads, you are in the middle of some really heavy rainfall at this hour as well. I'll zoom in just a little bit. And there's Denton Road, there's Green Road. Let's see, there's Paramore Road right there, and there's Midland City and Napier Field. So, you know, this is the area that's seeing some of the heavy rainfall and those gusty winds. I'll take that up to the north and to the northeast a little bit. Newville getting into it, Headland getting into it. Very heavy rainfall here around the radar site in Echo here. This is Dale County. This is Henry County. There's 173. There's 431. And if I go back over to the wind map, the velocity map, there's the leading edge now of that wind between 173 and 431. So pretty much now from the Headland area northward on 431. Very strong winds. These pings indicate winds in excess of 50 miles per hour. So sustained winds at 50 miles per hour. And within that batch of 50 mile per hour winds, we have those winds at 55 or even 60 miles per hour. And those are the winds, even at 50 miles per hour, those are the winds that are going to produce some tree damage in particular. This little pocket here is kind of standing out. That is not too far north of 134, almost due west of Headland. And then this pocket here off to the west of Newville is also standing out. Those are really strong winds. There's that wind now overtaking 431. It is windy now in Headland. It is raining very hard in Headland. Also Newville, very heavy rainfall. All these pockets in red here are experiencing some really intense rain. That's the core of this severe thunderstorm threat. So I'll go back to the big view. We have a big warning here in the Enterprise area, Dale County, and even into Geneva County. We're not going to see any of that kind of weather here in Geneva County, and this part of Houston County too is looking okay. If we go back to that wind map, you're going to see some gusty winds, but the severe wind potential is kind of confined to this area right here. May come on through parts of Dothan, certainly into the southeastern corner of Dale County and the southwestern corner of Henry County. So we're talking Newville to Headland, southward to Dothan, Midland City, Napier Field. All of us are seeing some gusty winds, some heavy rainfall. This outflow boundary moving southward is not as intense as it is farther north. I'll give you just a couple different radar views. Just distant radar sometimes give us a little better view, but nothing that really stands out in this case. So I'm going to zoom back in here. I'll plot some more of these wind speeds, and we're still seeing there's a 59. So again, there's the radar shooting very low in the sky. So when the radar sees raindrops moving at 59 miles per hour away from the site, that gives us the idea that we're seeing a west to an east wind, or a west northwest to east southeast or east southeast wind, and they're in excess of 50 to 60 miles per hour. So damaging winds, that is north of Newville, right along 431, right along 173 at this hour. A severe thunderstorm warning from a cluster that has been holding together for over an hour now. This really came together in the area south of Montgomery and has been moving down to the southeast. It's got a little bit of a cold pool behind us, so it's got some energy in the atmosphere. is helping to push it along, and it's moving into an area that is somewhat more stable than it was up here, but we still have temperatures and dew points in the 70s, and that dew point number is key when you go to forecast severe thunderstorms, how much moisture is in the atmosphere. The higher the dew point, the more buoyant the air is. So we had a dew point at 10 o'clock, I know, in Dothan of 73 degrees. So a 73-degree dew point gives the atmosphere a fair amount of buoyancy, and that's how these storms can hold together even after the sun has gone down and air temperatures have cooled into the 70s. There's a flowers cam up the west side of Dothan. It's right in through here, so some of the strongest winds are coming on through, and the rain here is light to moderate. It's not as heavy as it is here on the north and northeast side of Dothan, up there towards Headland and into the Newville area. I'll zoom back in here. This continues to be a pretty powerful storm, which is why we're continuing with our coverage here on air and online. A lot of lightning strikes, a lot of heavy rainfall. This is the south and west part of Henry County, the far southeast part of Dale County, and the northwestern part there of Houston County. So the heaviest rainfall approaching downtown Dothan, the west side of town, looking at moderate rainfall. The north side of town here, looking at moderate to heavy rainfall, and the northward here between 173 and 431, some of the heaviest rainfall and the strongest winds. That will carry areas east there of 431, may make it towards Haleburg. The core of this whole cluster really is what we're watching between Dothan and areas just north of Newville. This is the pocket. If you live in this pocket or out ahead of this pocket of storminess, be prepared for gusty winds in excess of 50 miles per hour, heavy rainfall, and a whole lot of lightning over a very short period of time. There is good news. It moves into your area and moves out of your area pretty quickly. We're talking within 10, 15 minutes max, and then it gets better. So it comes in with a punch and it moves out pretty quickly, and you very quickly see big improvements. So for example, in Ozark, looking at some light rainfall left at this point, and that's about it. So it does get better. Echo starting to get better as well, but east of Echo over towards Headland, southward to the Dothan area, very, very heavy rainfall at this hour. Let's just go full screen on that flowers cam for a second. I'm going to switch back over and show you a different view here, and we'll kind of sample what else is happening in the area. Not much to show you here on this camera as far as intense rainfall. That's a heck of a lightning strike. We got that on camera. Let me see if I can switch over to some of these other cams. This is our camera on the southwest side of the circle. That is near the Toyota dealership, and you can see some moderate rainfall occurring there. Let's go over to, we have another camera, and this one is, well, not looking great. A lot of lightning strikes here, and I lost control. I can't control these cameras without a restart on this program. So let's go full screen, Kenneth, on the radar full screen, and take the Skycam off. I'm going to do a quick reboot on this program and start it back up. That gives me control then of the motion, so we can move it around. Headland, Dothan now, downtown Dothan, really heavy rainfall moving on through, and the winds here at least 40 miles per hour, 30, 40 miles per hour. The damaging straight line winds, that main threat now is in Henry County around Headland and Newville. That's the area that we're really watching for some intense wind and some heavy rain at the same time. Okay, let's go back to the camera shot again. This is our camera on the Cochran Firm building on the circle, on the west side of the circle, and you can see there's pretty good rain occurring here, and a lot of lightning flashing in the sky. So we're looking northward. This is up towards where the Krispy Kreme and the Friend Bank and the Burger King are at 84, and we're looking to the north there. So the worst of this weather is on the north side of town. We can look at maybe some of the trees here. Apologize for the jumpiness. These trees are moving around, not crazy. So these winds here probably 20, maybe 30 miles per hour in this area. Pretty good rainfall. You can see in the city light there on the bottom next to the radar image. The rain is coming down pretty good, being blown pretty good, but those are about 20, 30 mile per hour winds at this point here on the west side of Dothan. I'll go back over to that flowers cam. This is on the west side of the city, and not looking real bad. A lot of lightning flashes here also as we look to the east there. The trees that you see, nothing that really stands out as being too severe. Certainly some rainfall in that part of the city. I think that's about all we can do in the city of Dothan. I'm going to go back to the Cochran Firm cam. That might give us the best view here, at least in the short term, of what we're looking at in the city of Dothan. At least the lightning flashes are showing up at that point. We don't have a camera in Headland, because that'd be a good one as that rainfall comes on through. But if we look up here, we're kind of looking up towards the Headland area, and as the lightning flashes, you can make out some of the cloud structure, and certainly does look pretty impressive out there at this point. Okay, go back to full screen. Yep, there it is, graphics there. Headland, Dothan, the whole 431 corridor, heavy rainfall and still some gusty winds. This is the pocket here where we have these damaging winds. Again, everything here in pink, those are winds in excess of 50 miles per hour. So it is producing probably some tree damage in pockets anywhere here. This little area by Headland is about to move in, so the winds may actually increase here a little bit in Headland as it comes on through over towards Granbury Crossroads. The leading edge of this now surging out there towards Haleburg. This pocket has winds of 50 to 60 miles per hour, and maybe still some embedded pockets of winds over 60 miles per hour. The far northern part here of Houston County, and then the southern part of Henry County. This area by Kinsey and eastward probably has winds at 55 or 60 miles per hour. The north side of Dothan is seeing more wind than the south side of Dothan, given the structure of this cell. Let me zoom out here a little bit. I'll switch back over to the reflectivity view and just animate this. Always good to kind of go back and see where the storm has been and where it's moving. This area to the west really isn't too strong at all, just some rainfall. So I know you have a warning here in Geneva County. I'm not worried about any severe weather in Geneva County at all. And most of Houston County, really areas west and south of Dothan, will be okay from this cell. If there's any severe potential, it's from this area right here, about the, I guess, the south side of the circle in Dothan, up there to where my hand is in the central part of Henry County, and then areas to the east. All right, and if that were to hold together, that would carry it into Early County and into the Blakely area. Certainly a possibility, but it's this little, I mean, if I could redraw a warning polygon, if I could do that, it would look something like this. It would be, let's see where we are here. Nope. Let me grab my line, click my line. All right, I'm going to make this pause, and it would be something like this. So where these arrows are, basically between here and between here in this area. So if you are anywhere from where this line is, Dothan up there towards, say, Granbury Crossroads or eastward, this is the area that will see this worst wind move in the next 20 to 30 minutes, assuming it holds together with winds of 50 plus miles per hour. So Ashford, Webb, Cowarts, these are the areas that will see some gusty winds, some heavy rainfall. Haleburg as well will see some heavy rain, gusty winds will overtake that whole area, and a lot of lightning strikes occurring at the same time. Let's see, get rid of this and let's zoom back in to this area here in Henry County and Houston County. Heavy rainfall now in Dothan, the southeast side of the circle, seeing really intense rainfall, better on the west side, but Newville to Headland over towards Webb, and then up there towards Haleburg, this whole area, very heavy rain, lots of lightning, and more importantly, the damaging wind potential. This wind is over 50 miles per hour. It is getting better. There's been some weakening with this, which is definitely good. And what we look at if the winds change on this depiction as it moves away from the radar site. And I'll explain this for you. Close to the radar site, you're looking really low in the sky. As you go farther away, your radar beam, because of the curvature of the Earth, is higher and higher in the sky. So what shows up as a 60 mile per hour wind here is stronger than what shows up as a 60 mile per hour wind here on radar, because here you're shooting in the lowest few hundred feet of the atmosphere. Up here you're shooting up to 700, 800, 900 feet in the atmosphere. So you would typically see stronger winds the farther away from the radar site, the higher up into the atmosphere you go. And we're not seeing that, which, as I analyze, that's good news, bottom line. Still gusty winds, but these winds may not be over 60 miles per hour, maybe more like 45 to 55 miles per hour. But this pocket there by Newville, north of Headland, that's one pocket of really intense wind, and that kind of corresponds to where the heaviest rainfall is occurring and some of the worst lightning at this point, right around Newville. So let me zoom into that area. Also watching that little area south of Headland. So Newville here to 431. Heavy rainfall, dark red showing up, and if I go back over to that velocity view, that's where we see some of these brighter pixels. So in a small area, you can have really intense winds, an area that's only maybe a half mile wide or that, so 63 miles per hour. So you're probably looking at least 60 miles per hour at ground level because we are scanning pretty low in the sky. That came right on through Newville and moving towards Tumbleton. So if you live in that area or know anyone in that area, give them a heads up. This is just a small core of very powerful winds, and it really kind of hit Newville, crossed 431, and if this little pocket, this little area right here, holds together, then it comes right into Tumbleton in the next couple minutes with winds at or above 60 miles per hour. So up here you might be looking at 45 mile per hour winds. Down here you could be at 48 miles per hour, but in between you can have a little pocket of 60, even 65 mile per hour winds. It occurs in that small of an area, and that's how, if you're driving along the road, you can see localized wind damage from these powerful gusts that are small in nature. If I zoom out a little bit, it becomes harder to see that definition, but certainly a pocket there, some stronger winds, a little pocket here too, south of 134, off to the southwest of Granbury Crossroads, and gusty winds from the north side of Dothan all the way up through Headland. But we're kind of pinpointing, within this batch of 45 to 55 mile per hour winds, where are we seeing even stronger winds? And we're seeing that now to the east of Newville, and probably here a little bit south of 134 between Headland and Granbury Crossroads. Damaging winds, heavy rainfall, lots of lightning with this cell. Also, it is shrinking in coverage, so the severe area that was pretty big is smaller now, confined to the Headland, to Newville, to Tumbleton, to Haleburg area, the southern part of Henry County. Conditions north and south of there are not nearly as bad as they are right there over the southern part of Henry County. Damaging straight line wind event underway here as this cluster holds together. It's not very big in size, but it is really strong over a small area. So we're watching it come on through Henry County and the northern part here of Houston County, and may make it into Early County. Again, there's enough moisture in the atmosphere to keep fueling these showers and storms. A lot of lightning showing up there. This is our camera at the Cochran Firm building on the west side of the circle, pretty close to 84 and the circle. Very vivid lightning outdoors. It makes it kind of hard to go to sleep if you're seeing all that flashing and hearing all that thunder. A lot of lightning here too, Dale County into Henry County. Again, southward, they took away that warning in Geneva County. It wasn't going to happen there. Even the southern part here of Houston County, say towards Madrid, Cottonwood, the Taylor Rehoboth area, we're okay, but this area around Newville to Tumbleton to Headland to Dothan, and then areas west, Webb, Cowers being hit, and then eventually over towards Columbia as well. We'll likely get some heavy rainfall. And Haleburg, heads up, because that is about to move into your area there from the west. Newville still in that heavy rainfall southward to Headland, Kinsey in the heavy rainfall over towards Granbury Crossroads along 134, very heavy rainfall. Lots of lightning strikes and those really strong winds showing up here. The areas in pink, especially bright pink, those are the worst winds now to the east of 431, north and east of Headland, east of Newville, moving into Haleburg. This is the leading edge of that gusty wind. So you go from winds that are about 5 miles per hour to winds that are real quick, 30, 40 miles per hour with embedded pockets of 45 or higher. And then we have still this smaller area in aerial coverage, but still an area of 50 plus mile per hour winds. And within that 50 plus mile per hour wind batch, we have some winds that are probably gusting over 60 miles per hour. I'll zoom back in here to this one area just east of Newville, and now coming right on through Tumbleton, southward to Granbury Crossroads. So this is the pocket of the worst winds. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, and we'll plot a couple wind speeds. Click here, zoom out, and let me take my wind speed indicator. I want to actually see if Tumbleton shows up. So there you go, to get your bearings. There is 134 right here going towards Granbury Crossroads, and then just south of Tumbleton, that's where we have this little pocket of damaging winds we're seeing 65, 64, 64 miles per hour. So very, very strong winds here, damaging straight line winds, very wet ground in this part of Henry County, and that will produce some tree damage and may take down some power lines as well. Winds here around Granbury Crossroads at 65 showing up here on Doppler radar, and you've got to figure, take away maybe 5 miles per hour, but you got to figure 55 to 60, maybe 65 miles per hour at ground level. So a lot of this wind energy is being transferred down to the ground, and one way we can kind of confirm that is by looking at the reflectivity, and where you see the dark reds, it aligns with the strongest winds that we're seeing, and those raindrops, of course, are falling down. So those winds from above can be transferred down to the surface pretty easily with that heavy rainfall. And that's why you typically see the strongest winds with the heaviest rainfall. Same thing in a tropical system. You get a squall to come on through. The winds are stronger in that squall because there's a better downward transfer of momentum in the heavy rainfall compared to a light rainfall area or no rainfall. So Templeton, you are in it. Areas east now of Granbury Crossroads, where you see that red and dark red showing up, those are the pockets here of really intense wind, damaging straight line winds coming out through the southern part of Henry County and clipping the northern part of Houston County, basically from, say, Highway 52 northward, looking at very, very strong winds in Houston County. There's a look at the winds in Houston County. So approaching Columbia, intense rain and intense wind, and still a very strong pocket of wind here, damaging straight line winds ongoing in Henry County. As it moves to the east, it will likely produce more wind damage over the southern parts of Henry County. Winds at 60 to 65 miles per hour will produce damage, especially given the fact the ground is so wet. So power outages, a possibility, damage to parked vehicles, a possibility to structures from falling trees, certainly a possibility. Haleburg into the stronger winds at this point. Batch, they're about to move into Columbia. There's no rotation. There's no signs of any tornado formation or anything like that occurring at all from this cluster moving on through. It's the threat for damaging straight line winds that continues over a relatively small area. But if you're in this area, you know it. It is really, really coming down. Heavy rainfall, very strong winds now between Headland and Haleburg, areas around and east and north of Granbury Crossroads and south of Templeton in Henry County, and the far northern part of Houston County, seeing very, very intense rain and very gusty winds also. This is Granbury Crossroads. I'll zoom in and give you a couple pixels here where we see the yellow showing up. Like this one here, that's probably 66 miles per hour. So very strong winds, all of these pixels too. That coloring that almost turns a bit yellow or orangish, 66 miles per hour. So elevated here a little bit. We're talking several hundred feet above the ground. But again, this corresponds to that heavy rainfall. So you got to figure that a lot of this wind energy is making its way down to the surface in these downpours that are occurring. So we'll keep watching this threat here and continue with our coverage due to these very, very strong winds over a small area, but very strong winds over that area as they continue to move on through to the east and southeast. Dothan, east side of town, looking a whole lot worse than the west side of town. The winds here are not as bad. In fact, you can kind of see that southward motion has been kind of carried a little more eastward here. So that's a good sign as far as keeping the wind speeds down. The concern here for severe winds pretty low. But this area is really spreading out and accelerating towards Early County. And that will likely produce a new severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Early County as it kind of spreads out here and that wind energy crosses from really most of Henry and Houston counties into Early County with that damaging wind threat ongoing. We'll go back over to the velocity view here and I'll animate this as well over the past hour. This came on through the Ozark area. It's a small pocket, a relatively small pocket, and it really is still a relatively small pocket, but this pocket, as we've seen, has been producing some excessive winds in the past hour, over 60 miles per hour. So the wind field is rather large, and I'm talking about this line here, which goes now into the Florida Panhandle, all the way through the central part of Houston County up into Early County. That's the outflow from this cluster, but within that outflow, there's really one small batch of severe winds, and it's this batch right here that continues to come on through Henry County. There's been a little brightening. Part of that brightening, again, is the fact that we're going farther away from the radar sites. We're shooting up higher in the sky. We expect to see some brightening of these colors and a stronger wind appearance on our table when we plot it. That said, this is still a severe pocket of winds with gusts over 60 miles per hour, the southern part of Henry County. It will move into Early County, and the way it looks will pass probably just to the south of Blakely, and there's really no indication that this wants to weaken anytime quickly, and since it's moving into a fairly humid atmosphere, it should maintain its strength for just at least a little bit longer here. We're at 11:36 Central Time. May make it for another half hour, maybe a little bit longer, but there has been some weakening, and that is encouraging to see. This has been a very long-tracked cluster of wind. Let me go back here 2 hours. We were watching this during our 10 p.m. newscast, and we'll just kind of see the evolution of this. And I guess you can pull that camera here. Go ahead and pull that camera off, and we'll show you this full screen. So this began up there in Pike County, and it came on through Troy and Brundage down there to areas around Ozark, and then it's just been spreading out now through Henry County. And it has really the whole time been a relatively small pocket of very, very intense winds. Right there, you see it coming right on through, and there it is right now. It's that same area that we're watching right in through there that's spreading out to the southeast. So a lot of wind energy in the atmosphere overall, but just a small pocket of really, really intense winds. I'll switch over to the reflectivity view, and we'll take a look at this storm here real quick in the Florala area. That one is also putting down a lot of heavy rainfall, and let me just glance over at the velocity view here just to make sure there's a little more ability for a storm to rotate down here, although that's really, really weak. It's just worth pointing out there's some weak rotation showing up here around Florala. That's the far southern part of Covington County, about to move into the northern part of Walton County. This is using the Eglin radar, and we'll just animate this to kind of give a view of what it looks like here over the past hour. There's not much to it, but we'll keep our eyes on what's happening there as it moves into Walton County. But this area, even from a distance, you can see how that cell moving on through Henry County is potent. Now this radar is shooting way up into the atmosphere, several thousand feet, and is still indicating very strong winds at several thousand feet. And we're seeing it down low with our radar out of Echo, the Fort Novacell radar. Let me go back over to this, and we'll go up here. So there's that one pocket ongoing now, basically south of Haleburg and due east of Granbury Crossroads. This is the pocket of 60+ mile per hour winds now between Haleburg and Columbia, about to cross over Highway 95 with very strong winds. So we're looking at County Road 53 right here. County Road 53, there's Highway 95. This is the area really right along 53 at this point in Henry County, southeastern Henry County, where we have these damaging winds in excess of 60 miles per hour in pockets. Widespread 50+ mile per hour winds, but the potential is there for 60+ mile per hour winds in that area between Haleburg and Columbia. Columbia is getting some pretty strong winds now, probably 40 to 50 miles per hour. You go just a little bit to the north there and into Henry County, and we're looking at these winds in excess of 55 to even 60 miles per hour. That will pass pretty close to Blakely. There's been some weakening with that cell. There has not been an extension of that severe thunderstorm warning yet into Early County. I suspect there will be, as that is the strongest pocket of winds here, about to move from Henry County and then into Early County. The outflow now is moving into Early County. That's what this arcing pattern is right there. That's the outflow moving into Early County and approaching Blakely. Those winds, when they first come in, are going to gust to about 20 to 30, maybe 35 miles per hour. Then all of a sudden, as you get into the heavier rainfall, you get some of the stronger winds to move in. So that area is between Haleburg and Columbia. There's been some weakening definitely showing up here on radar, which is good news. I'll go back just a few frames here, and you can kind of see it move off to the east and kind of spread out a little bit. And we kind of want to see that pocket of really intense wind spread out. Now the problem's been that one pocket of intense wind has remained a pretty significant pocket of intense wind. You can still see it if you look here at the big view. view, there's pretty good wind energy through Houston County into Early County and Henry County, but this pocket is the pocket that is still standing out, and that's the pocket that we've been most concerned with for wind damage. You saw the power flash in Ozark earlier as the city was just getting a glancing blow from this pocket. So, you know, even without me looking at any other data coming in, I'm sure there are reports of power outages in this area from north of Ozark towards Echo, areas around Newville, and then towards Haleburg, because these winds have been in a long line here in excess of 60 miles per hour, and those winds will take down trees and cause more power outages. And the linemen have been doing a heck of a job all week trying to catch up on what happened earlier in the week, especially Wednesday evening when that line came on through. By the way, the same area, that line that surged on through here Wednesday evening had winds over 70 miles per hour in pockets. Now this one is 60 plus miles per hour, and that's another thing to consider. Some of the trees that were weakened Wednesday that are still standing and fine, you think, get hit by a 60 mile per hour wind, and that's enough to push them over, and they're going to call it quits. So that can cause issues as well, and certainly maybe at this hour. There's a pocket now of strongest winds still showing up as a pocket of winds moving from Henry County into Early County. Areas west of Blakely, there's the outflow coming on through. Those winds will be a little gustier as that arrives. You go from very calm conditions out ahead of this to very gusty winds, 20, 25, 30 miles per hour. And then all of a sudden, if you get into this core of wind, those winds could be over 50 to even 60 miles per hour. I'll zoom in here. We're just north of Columbia, all right, to get your bearings, north of 52 there. There's 134. And let's query some of these pixels here. Now we're shooting a little bit higher in the sky, so to see 68, see the wind speeds go up is not surprising. That tells us more or less that we're still seeing that wind potential at the surface of 55 to 60 miles per hour. Very strong winds, certainly winds that are strong enough to produce damage to trees in particular. So we'll keep watching this as it moves into Early County. Generally, it's been improving for many areas. I'll go back to the big view of the reflectivity. Most areas are okay. Light to moderate rainfall moving on through. Still a lot of lightning strikes, but this one pocket of really intense wind does stand out, although there has been some weakening here over the past, say, 5 to 10 minutes, although that one core is still holding together pretty well. The pocket of heaviest rainfall now is off to the east of Columbia into Early County, and some heavy rainfall moving into the Mayhaw area as well in Miller County. And then we'll switch back over to that velocity view, and that one pocket here is still showing up north of Columbia. And these winds here on the leading edge are rather strong as well. But again, it's been getting a little bit better. No severe thunderstorm, no new severe thunderstorm warning has been coming out for that cell in Early County. Kind of surprised that has not been extended looking at the radar data. There's a lot of lightning ongoing, still some gusty winds ongoing as well. Henry County into Early County, areas north there in Houston County, looking at heavy rainfall. The core of that wind will be moving into Georgia here shortly, and there it is. And again, it continues to weaken. So there's been a definite weakening here in the last 5 to 10 minutes as that core moves eastward. It's still spreading out there, and still some very gusty winds between Columbia and Freeman. At this point, there's that little pocket of winds, probably in excess of 50, 55 miles per hour, reaching ground level. If we zoom in here a little bit and query, there's still some pretty strong winds here showing up, 65, 66. Again, we're a little more elevated the farther east we go. So just because you see these wind speeds doesn't mean that's actually reaching the ground. The wind speeds could be 10 to 15 miles per hour lower than what we're showing you as we query up there over 1,000 feet in the atmosphere. But still looking at the potential for some strong to damaging winds. Now moving into Early County. This is behind, by the way, the initial batch of wind. That initial surge, the initial outflow is about to move into Blakely from the west here with winds of 20, maybe 30 miles per hour. Then just behind that, we have a secondary batch of really strong winds. So let's go back over to the reflectivity view. The leading edge of that wind is right in through here. As the rainfall kind of picks up from light to moderate, you'll get a burst of wind and you'll get some heavier rainfall heavy rainfall here off to the south of Blakely in Early County, east now of Columbia, and then right in through this area, this batch of heavier rainfall, we've got that secondary batch of strong winds. But that has gotten better over the past several minutes as we've been watching this move to the east there. It was really intense coming out through Headland and Newville, and there's been definitely some weakening overall. You can almost make out a little bit of a twisting motion in the radar returns, and that's not that surprising. Sometimes these big clusters give birth to mid-level little mesocyclones that can spin for a while, but that has been weakening there. You can kind of just see the radar returns kind of fading a little bit there as it moves towards Early County, and it looks like a new batch of heavier rainfall expanding southward from there. So some improvement. Certainly we will continue to monitor these showers and storms. There has been no extension of that severe thunderstorm warning into Early County. That said, there's still that chance for these winds to gust over 50, even to 55 or 60 miles per hour, but it has been improving and weakening a little bit over the past several minutes, and that is what we want to see. This has been a very potent line of showers and storms. Heads up there in Mayhaw, I just see a little kink showing up there on the radar view, so I'm going to stick with this and just kind of keep an eye on that just in case. All right, so hearing from my director, Alabama Power is reporting 700 without power in the Ozark, just in the Ozark area. So 700 without power in the Ozark area from Alabama Power. That's quite a bit. Okay, so this has caught my attention here. This is one of these little hooks that we see sometimes that is forming now in Early County and approaching Mayhaw. And this is pretty common in these situations. We saw it the other night where you can have just a little bit of a hook form along the leading edge of the wind, and that actually ends up being like a mini tornado, a gustnado, and it can be pretty powerful in a small area. So that's a heads up if you live in this area off to the west of Mayhaw in Early County, not too far away from Jones Crossroads. That's Highway 39 here, and there's 273. So north of 273 by just a few miles right in this area. This is just a little S-shaped feature, and when we see that, we've got some pretty good inflow right here. We've got outflow right here. You can have a little mini gustnado form right there. Those 2 pixels is where it would be if it's trying to form, and it looks like it might be trying to form. So watching that, I'm going to go back over to that other velocity view. The stronger winds here, that pocket of stronger winds has spread out. So the core severe wind pocket that produced those power outages is getting better. So you can kind of see it there. If I go back, that's what we've been watching, and now it has weakened. We would expect these colors to get brighter the farther away we go from the radar site, and we're seeing them weaken. So that gives us more confidence that this is now below severe limits as it moves into the western part there of Early County. That's good. Winds at 40, maybe 50 miles per hour as opposed to 55 or 60 miles per hour. One thing here that I want to watch for a few more minutes is this little feature that's down here to the south along the leading edge of that initial batch of wind, which is now coming out through Blakely southward. It was a pretty solid line. I'll go back here and animate this over the past hour. This was just a traditional outflow boundary, all moving in the same direction with a very uniform look to it. Now it's gotten a little jagged there as it approaches Mayhaw, so there's been a little bit of a notch that has formed. And again, these little notches can produce little gustnados. Small in nature, but very powerful. If you get hit by the winds of one of these gustnados, you can have localized winds of 70 plus miles per hour, while the general flow is 30 or 40 miles per hour. So it can be pretty intense. Not the most ideal setup for that to occur, but certainly a possibility when you start seeing a little kink in the line like that, which is pretty much now just to the west of Mayhaw. These winds are down now below severe limits in Early County as that line moves in from the west. We'll keep watching this around Mayhaw, not really tightening up too much, but there's certainly a chance here for some localized gusty winds by Jones Crossroads. That is crossing now, let's see, 39, and we'll come pretty close to Mayhaw here in the next few minutes. These are winds blowing in towards the radar site, winds blowing out, so just a little hint of rotation, the potential there right along 39 for a brief spin up to occur. And that coincides with that heavy rainfall that is occurring in that area. Pretty much obscured by rain. So not looking like the most ideal environment for a little gust tornado to form. But nonetheless, there's just been a little pocket of rotation there showing up that we are watching. Heavy rainfall. Again, these storms now below severe limits, so this severe thunderstorm warning will be allowed to go away, and this will move into Miller County, the rest of Early County, and should continue to weaken. That's kind of been the trend here for a while, but really kind of accelerating that weakening trend here over the past 15 minutes. So for now, we will go back to normal programming. We will keep watching this little area around Mayhaw. If it does happen to tighten up a little bit, we'll get back on the air, but improving conditions after a very busy here 1 hour with reports of power outages, down trees, I'm sure, from that cluster of showers and storms as it came out through parts of Pike County, into Dale County, Henry County, Houston County, and now into Early County as well. We will be watching for the potential of more showers and thunderstorms to move in this weekend as we go through the PM hours on Saturday and then probably at some point on Sunday as well. This whole severe weather pattern holds until late on Sunday, then it kind of breaks down early next week. So unusual certainly for the middle of June, but we have this northwesterly flow in the atmosphere still in place for the weekend, and that will carry that severe threat through the weekend. So stay tuned here. We will give you updates as needed right here on WTVY News 4.
This has been a forewarned weather alert.